In the quiet, idyllic town of Stillwater, Minnesota, nestled by the serene St. Croix River, an unimaginable horror began to unfold. It began on a chilling October evening when the first body was found, brutally murdered and left on display in Pioneer Park. The victim was identified as Laura Palmer, a beloved local schoolteacher. Her death sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community. Detective Jack Arnold, a seasoned investigator with a sharp intellect and an intuitive sense for human nature, was assigned to the case. He arrived at the crime scene, his seasoned eyes taking in the macabre sight before him. Laura's body was posed sitting on a park bench, her lifeless eyes staring out at the river, her hands clasping a single white rose. It was a terrifying blend of horror and artistry that sent chills down Jack's spine. This wasn't an ordinary killer. It was a mastermind playing a sinister game. As Jack delved deeper into the case, more bodies began to appear across town, each brutally murdered, each posed with a single white rose. The victims had nothing in common except for the horrifying way they met their end. The town was paralyzed by fear, their peaceful community turned into a hunting ground by a deranged predator. Jack worked tirelessly, combing through every shred of evidence. Despite his efforts, the killer remained elusive, always a step ahead. Jack was dealing with a ghost, a phantom that struck with ruthless precision and vanished without a trace. It was as if the killer was taunting him, challenging him to a morbid game of cat and mouse. As the body count rose, so did the pressure on Jack. He could see the fear in the town folks' eyes, could feel the chilling dread that hung in the air. The once vibrant town was slowly being choked by an insidious terror. One night, Jack received a call. Another body had been found. This time, it was in the town's historic courthouse. But this scene was different. There was a note addressed to Jack, written in a delicate, almost elegant script. "Do you see, Detective?" A cold dread washed over Jack. The killer was communicating with him directly, a sinister link that sent a shiver down his spine. The note hinted at a pattern, a hidden message in the staging of the bodies. Jack revisited each crime scene, his mind racing to decode the grim tableau left by the killer. Then, it struck him. The locations of the murders, when mapped, formed a perfect circle, with the town's old cemetery at its center. The single white rose, the symbol of innocence and purity, was a cruel mockery of the life violently taken. The note was a challenge, an invitation to the final act. With grim determination, Jack made his way to the cemetery. As he moved through the tombstones, he could feel an icy fear creeping up his spine. Then he saw it. In the heart of the cemetery, a fresh grave was dug, a single white rose placed at its head. It was empty, a chilling promise of the horror yet to come. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. The figure was masked, its identity concealed. Before Jack could react, the figure lunged at him. A struggle ensued, a dance of death under the cold gaze of the moon. Finally, Jack managed to unmask the figure. The face staring back at Jack was Mayor Thomas, a respected figure in Stillwater, now unmasked in this chilling graveyard confrontation. Jack wrestled him down, the man offering little resistance. But as Jack handcuffed him, the mayor began to laugh, a chilling, mirthless sound that echoed through the silent graveyard. "I'm not the one you're looking for, Detective," the mayor rasped, his voice barely a whisper. As the authorities arrived to take Mayor Thomas away, Jack was left with an unnerving thought. The mayor's words echoed in his mind, adding another layer of uncertainty to the case. Then, the unthinkable happened. The murders continued. The town, momentarily relieved by the arrest of the mayor, found itself once again in the grip of fear. The murderer was still at large, and Mayor Thomas had merely been a pawn in a sinister game. Jack was back at square one, the sense of dread hanging heavier than ever. The murders became more gruesome, each more chilling than the last. The whole town was living in terror, the killer's presence like a dark cloud over Stillwater. One chilling winter night, Jack found himself standing before another grotesque tableau, a body posed in the town library, a white rose clasped in its hands. Alongside the body was another note. "The end is near, Detective." It was a grim promise, an omen that sent a shiver down Jack's spine. The game was reaching its end, the final act of the horrifying drama about to unfold. Days turned into weeks, the killings sporadic but relentless. Jack was running on fumes, the relentless pursuit taking its toll. He was a man on the edge, his life consumed by the hunt for a ghost, a phantom killer who always seemed to slip through his fingers. Then, one late evening, Jack received a call. There was another crime scene. But this time, it was his own home. Fear clenched his heart as he raced to his house. As he pushed open the door, the sight that met his eyes was straight out of his worst nightmare. His house had been turned into a crime scene, a macabre stage set by the killer. In the middle of his living room, a single white rose lay on his favorite chair, a chilling promise of the horror to come. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. Before Jack could react, the figure attacked. A struggle ensued, Jack grappling with his unseen adversary. But the killer was strong, his moves methodical and relentless. Jack could feel his strength ebbing away as the killer landed a heavy blow. He collapsed to the floor, his vision blurring. The last thing he saw was the killer standing over him, a silhouette against the moonlit window. His end was neither swift nor merciful. The killer took his time, reveling in Jack's helplessness. Jack's final moments were filled with an unimaginable terror, the looming specter of death overshadowing all else. As life seeped out of him, Jack's last thought was of the killer, the unseen phantom who had turned his life into a horrifying nightmare. In the aftermath, the town of Stillwater was left once again in a state of shock. The detective who had been their beacon of hope was gone, his end as gruesome as those he had vowed to avenge. The identity of the killer remained a mystery, an enigma that cast a long, haunting shadow over Stillwater. And the chilling thought of the killer still being at large, perhaps planning his next gruesome act, added a new layer of terror to the town's grim folklore. After all, when the hunter becomes the hunted, who is left to keep the shadows at bay?